I teach on the subject of increase. And on the surface, we think we know what increase means. Most people equate it with abundance or prosperity. But that is not really what the message of increase is. The message of increase is a teaching about changing the way that we process what we hear and what we see. And when we change what we process, what we hear and we see, we have a different thinking, we have a different reaction, we have a different feeling than we had before. You know, the Bible says that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. And so real change does not take place in the conscious mind. Real change takes place in the subconscious mind. And real change only happens when our instinctive reactions have changed. But if we can reprogram ourselves from the scarcity mentality, that barely get along mentality that we're surrounded with, that so many people have, then all of a sudden we hear what other people hear, and we now have a different interpretation of what they hear. And it affects finances. Well, here's just a few weeks ago, I got this from a young man in Phoenix. He said, I got your teaching on increase. He said, I began to apply the principles into my business. My drywall business was averaging $30,000 a month. He said, Phil just finished doing my taxes, and we found out that my drywall business this last year has gone from $30,000 to $500,000 a month. See, when his thinking changed, his expectations changed. Areas of his life changed. But it's not just that. Listen to what Harvey wrote me. He said, within a few years, my business more than doubled. Now, there's the finances, but listen to the rest. I got more involved in my church, spiritual. He said, my marriage has never been better. My wife and I are running around the house like two teenagers in love. Relationship, and even health. He said, I've been totally cured of cancer, and I lost 75 pounds. See, every area of his life changed. But it's just our everyday life is affected by it. We hear what other people hear, but we have a different response. A few years ago, I was at LA Airport, and we were flying over to Kauai, where we were doing a seminar with Jensen Franklin. And it was a flight I didn't really want to take. It left LA at 5, and I got into Honolulu at 7:30. And then I was going to have to change Inter Island to go over to catch the 9 o'clock flight to Kauai and get in at 9:30, get my bags and get to the hotel, get the hotel at 10:30. And that might not sound bad to you, but when you left the Midwest, 10:30 is 3:30. And so, but it was the flight I needed to take to get there, I thought. So that's what we booked ourselves on. And I'm looking around the audience, not the audience, but the place where they're boarding, and the place is packed and people are standing around. And being an experienced flyer, my American airline card says 9 million miles. Being an experienced flyer, I knew that could mean that they're oversold. Now, when the word oversold is mentioned to the average person, their interpretation is confusion. Maybe I'm going to get a seat, not get a seat. If you're on United, maybe I'm going to get dragged off the plane. You know. So if the word announced is oversold to the average person, that's a negative. But to the frequent flyer, to the experienced person, to the increased thinker, the word oversold has a different definition. The word oversold means the airline is going to give away money. Well, one thing I've learned about life, I learned it when I traveled with Zig Ziglar. He said, success occurs when opportunity meets preparation. So it's not enough the opportunity's there, you got to be prepared for it. So I said, if they're going to announce it, and I want to be the one to get the money, I better get near the guy. So I walked right over next to the podium. So when he makes the announcement, he didn't even finish it. I said, we'll volunteer. I said, do you know how much you're paying? He said, how about $500 each, and we'll put you on the flight that comes over in 2 hours. So they're going to offer me $1,000 to wait at the airport for 2 hours. How many of you, if you had a flexible schedule, you'd wait 2 hours for $1,000? I'm just curious. All right, I do have increased thinkers here. But then I realized I had a problem. I'm now going to land at 9:30. I'm going to miss the connecting flight to Kauai. I'm going to have to come in all the way into Waikiki Beach, get a hotel, and go all the way back the next morning. That's really inconvenient. So I said to him, this is really inconvenient for me. He said, well, I said, tell you what. He said, what if I put you up in the Westin Hotel here in LA at the airport and we fly you over in the morning? What did he just say? Can I give you more money? Because I could cancel the Marriott in Kauai and get a free room in LA. So now I'm up to $1,400. Then I said, okay. I said, that's fine, but wait a minute. Why do I need to take the 9 o'clock flight to Honolulu and connect when you got a 9:30 nonstop flight to Kauai? He said, well, I already checked that, and all we have is first-class seats. I said, that's fine. So see, write down a practical experience where the rubber meets the road. When you get this mindset, when you get this thinking, it literally changes and revolutionizes your life. Now, I'm not going to teach on this tonight because I want to share with you some principles you can use in your life. But it begins with an awareness that there's a different way to think and a different way to live. But that only opens the door because then it's a process of retraining the way we think. It's like learning another language. You got to work on it. And with me, I had to get 3x5 cards and write Bible verses on and carry them around and memorize them. I put nothing but teaching on abundance and increase in the tape player in the car and drove around listening to that. I started changing some of the friends I went to. I deliberately went to meetings where it was taught. And over a period of a few months, I changed the way that I thought. And I changed my home. And all 5 of my kids are increased thinkers. And all 21 of my grandchildren are increased thinkers. And if we had time, I could share you stories of their lives, how they graduated from university and with no student loans because they figured out a way to use increase to pay as they went. And my whole life, my 3 generations, 4th coming up now, all impacted because I made a decision. I wasn't going to settle for average. I wasn't going to be negative. I wasn't going to believe in scarcity. I was going to believe in increase. And it's having a multi-generational blessing. I thought tonight, being that we're with business people predominantly and professionals, that I would share just a little bit of my story and how I got here, but not so much from my perspective, from your perspective, and some strategies that you can use in your life these next few months that could literally make this a breakthrough year for you. I believe that God can change our life in one day. Let me say that again. God can change your circumstances and change your life in one day. One day, Joseph was in prison. The next day, he's standing in front of Pharaoh. God can change your life that way. One day, David was watching sheep. The next day, he was a hero of the land as a giant killer. So I want you to have a perspective. If you're going through a tough time, don't give up. Hang in there, because the next day could be your day. It could be that one day when everything changes and you have your breakthrough. One day, you could rapidly accelerate to another level. It happened to me. I had an automobile renting and leasing company in Southern California, and it was very successful. And one day I took a customer's car in to get service after hours, drop it off at a nearby Chrysler dealership before I went home. When I drove in the driveway, the owner of that dealership was out in the service department. If you're familiar with automobile dealerships, owners don't spend much time in their service department. But we talked for a few minutes, and in the course of the conversation, I just said to him, "How's business?" And he says, "It is horrible." He said, "In fact, it's so bad, I phoned Chrysler this morning and told them I'm closing the store." I said, "You got to be kidding, why?" He said, we're out of cash. He said, "We've lost money every month this year. It's December now. We're out of money." He said, "The good salespeople are sensing things are bad and they're leaving." He said, "We still have over 100 of last year's new cars still in stock, and 83 of those are 8-cylinder gas guzzlers, and gas prices have gone up 100% in the last 45 days, meaning today that would be $7.50 a gallon, and nobody is buying 8-cylinder cars. He said it's an impossible situation, and those old cars have tied up our flooring, so we can't order new cars. He said, how's your business? I said, we just had a record-breaking month. He said, let's talk. And 15 minutes later, I walked out of that man's office, and he'd offered to give me 22% ownership in his Chrysler dealership if I would leave my leasing company and try and save his business. You talk about a one-day change. I take a car in to get service, it's not even mine, and I drive out as part owner of the business. But mind you, all I had was an opportunity, because all he did is just hand me off his problem. And I really didn't know what to do. Because, see, I'd sold cars for 2 weeks in my life and didn't like it, went back to the leasing business. And now this guy's saying, save our dealership. I didn't know what to do. And let me ask you, if you had that situation, what would you do? Where would you begin? You know, it's one thing to say, okay, this is great. Look what I'm getting, but if I can't perform, I'm just going to go bankrupt like him. And I realized, what did I need? Anytime God opens up a door for you, and write this down if you're taking notes. Anytime God opens up a door for you, the provision for the door he opens is going to follow. Let me say that again. Anytime God opens up a door for you, so the big question is, who's opening the door? Are circumstances opening the door? Or, you know, diversions opening the door? But if God's opening up that door, the provision is going to follow. But here's the problem. Most people interpret provision as money, and they wait for the money to show up to go through the door. See, I didn't need money. So what? I get the bank to give me $250,000, $500,000 to tide me over. And I don't have any different strategies than they had. I'm going to blow through $50,000, $75,000 the last month, and within a few months, I'm going to be right back to where we were before. I just bought a few months' time. So I didn't need money. What did I need? Ideas and strategies. And where do you get those? Oh, yes, you could phone some people that maybe are in the business. You could quick read some books or whatever it might be. But I discovered the greatest place to find strategies and ideas on my knees. Because there's a God in heaven that still speaks to this day like he spoke to Daniel. And if we will not be so quick to get on our feet, but start by getting on our knees and asking God to give us the wisdom, the ideas, lives will take on a whole different dimension. Prayer is not something reserved for the ladies' Bible study. Prayer should be a daily part of every leader's and achiever's life. Because it's not just a matter of getting power, it's a matter of getting direction. It's a matter of knowing to make decisions when we don't even know why, but we sense that's what we're supposed to do. And God, over a few days, began to say, do this, do this, do this. Simple things. But as I began to apply those things, everything began to turn around. We didn't just save that dealership. Oh, by the way, things got worse, if you can imagine it. Because a few weeks after we started, we not only had double gas prices, we didn't have gas. Gas stations were closing. They were only open an hour a day. Lines were football fields long. It was just a horrendous situation. But in that environment, we were able to get rid of all 100 of those year-old new cars. We increased sales 300%. The dealership skyrocketed to the top 10 in Southern California for Chrysler stores in 90 days' time. And the following month, I bought the dealership. Now, that's what I call a turnaround. But what were some of those strategies? There's 10 of them, and I just want to share 3 of them with you tonight that I think you could use in your life that would really be effective. Well, maybe we get to 4. The first question I would say, why did they offer me the opportunity? I'd sold cars for 2 weeks. Why didn't they find another general manager of a dealership that was successful? Why didn't they phone around to find somebody that maybe also? Well, why did he call me into the office and say, I want you to be the one to try and keep me from losing my business? We're not talking something small. Think of the responsibility he was putting on me. I want you to be the one to keep me from going bankrupt. Why me? I'll tell you why. 2 reasons. Number one, I live a life with divine favor. Psalms 5:12 says, the righteous is encompassed about with the spirit of favor. But in the natural, he was a partner of mine in the leasing company. He actually owned the leasing company, and I was buying him out. I started as an employee. I was so good as an employee, he allowed me to become a part owner. Then he switched the company to subchapter S so I could literally buy him out totally and be total owner of that business. We'd had a relationship for a period of time. And in that relationship, he discovered something about Bob Harrison. Bob Harrison doesn't do what's expected. He will always do more than what's expected. See, if you will make it a habit pattern that your average is an enemy word for you, you're not created to be average. God created you for greatness. But to experience that greatness, you have to decide to live a life of that greatness. And you make it a habit pattern that everything you touch is going to be greater than normal. Normal is not going to be acceptable for you. I remember we honored Oral Roberts one year. We did a banquet honoring him as Christian Leader of the Year. And during the questions and answer period, I asked Oral, how did you become the person who had the largest tent in the world for healing meetings? How did you become a person who had the #1 religious television program? How do you become a person who opened up a university? How do you become a person in today's money raised $250 million to open up the City of Faith? How do you do all those things? And he turned and he said, years ago I made a decision. And the decision was I would never do anything in a normal way. How would your life change if you said, I will never do anything in a normal way? Everything I touch is going to have. That's one thing I love about this church. I walked in and the architecture and the looks of it, it just is, everything about it is above normal. But that was the big picture. And I watched as it's come down. I see the flyers. I see this. I see that. And then they set us down to have a bite to eat before the service. And even the way they served the sushi was not normal. Nothing here is normal. There's a spirit of excellence that's here. And that's what is one of the things that attracts people here. But we have to make that a habit pattern of not just say it's going to be excellent here, but it's going to be excellent down to the sushi. Everything we touch is going to have a little bit of something special in it because that's the way we are. Paychecks are given to people who show up. Opportunities are given to people who do what is beyond their paid for. What if you have a company or you're in work today? Is what you do a little bit more than what's expected? It doesn't take a whole lot of money. It takes an attitude. I check out of the Ritz-Carlton, and I get in my car. And you know what's sitting on my dash? An orchid with a little sign. Thank you for staying with us. Look to see you again. Not a big thing. Didn't cost them much. But I can remember that. That's 6 years ago, and I'm still talking about it. Today, I leave the Grand Wailea, and I get in the car, and there's 2 ice-cold water bottles sitting in my dispenser that they put there, the valet put there. They have a refrigerator, and they put them in all the cars that go out there. Not a big thing, but see, that's what makes it the Grand Wailea. It's not just the beautiful buildings in the ground, it's the water bottles in the car. It's that they're looking to find any way they can to do something better than normal. And so the first thing I would say to you is make a decision that normal is going to be an enemy to you. You're not going to accept normal. So let's get back to the program because we only got a few more minutes. The first thing I feel I had to do, I had to change the perspective. By the way, all of these start with P, perspective. I had to change the perspective. See, anything and everything only works at its best when it's in the right environment. I'm an environmental engineer. We were talking about in the car, because and not in the sense that paper and plastic and all this stuff. Although I believe in most of that, but I believe that before I can perfect and get anything to maximize, I have to find out what's the best environment for it. And so anything I do, I try to think, what's the best environment? What's the best environment? What's the best environment? How can we make the environment better? And begin to examine that environment. Well, I just felt first thing to do, people are moved by what they see. Walk across the street and take a detached view of your business. If somebody drives up to this dealership, what do they see? And when I walked across the street, I realized something. It looked like a business going bankrupt. You know how you can spot a business going bankrupt? The first thing they cut back on when they were getting short of money is maintenance. I looked at the plants were dying. The bark was up. The bark was not bad. That was bad. The windows weren't clean. There wasn't very many cars on the front line. It just looked like a business that was going under. I couldn't turn it around if that was the look, because what was the impression somebody had? What was the feeling they had? And so I would say to you, if somebody looks at your goods, services, or product, or they go online, what are they going to think? What are they going to feel? Is it going to draw them in, or are they going to have to overcome that because they believe there's something better? So one of the greatest investments you can make is in first impression. What is the first impression of the audience that you're trying to reach? That's some of the best investment you can make. Look at your website. Look at your phone apps. Look at your vehicles, whatever it might be. They don't have to be new, but they have to be clean. They have to be a good representation of you. So look at perspective. Genesis says everything reproduces after its own kind. So what did I do? I said, number one, it was the biggest fight I had with that owner. The first week I was there. He found out I was spending thousands of dollars hiring a landscaper to come in and change. He said, I'm out of money and you're hiring a landscaper? We're not here for pictures. We're here for selling cars. I said, I've got to change the way the place looks and feels, or I can't do anything. And so we put new plants in. We got a yard vac. We cleaned the windows. And then I discovered we had 80 cars sitting on the back storage lot. And on the front lot, not that much inventory. I said, this is ridiculous. I said to the lot guy, I said, I want you to have all 80 of those cars cleaned and on the front line in a week. He said, boss man, we can't do that. I said, I don't care if you hire high school kids after school, what you have to do, 80 cars on the lot in a week. He said, boss man, there isn't enough room to put the cars up here. It'll look like a parking lot. I said, I don't care. The first impression of this dealership is going to be we're a volume dealer. That's what people are going to sense, and that's what they're going to feel. We're going to have that look. So the first thing I did, I changed the perspective. What changes the perspective might cause you to experience increase? The second change I had to make had to change some of the people. See, that dealership, they had good people that were experienced, but those people were maintainers. I didn't need a maintainer. I needed conquerors. I needed people that had a hunger, that wanted more, not just were trying to exist. The wrong people were there. I had survivors. I wanted overcomers. And so we made a change of the people we had there. See, the problem with sometimes our friends and people that work with us, we get close to them and have relationships with them, and I think that's valid. But some of them, they're not interested in growing with us. They've gotten to the level that they're comfortable with, and they've stopped. And now, if enough of them stop, they keep us from growing. Sometimes the people that got you to where you are the same people that will keep you from going to the next level. Because they've settled. They're where they wanted to be. And so we have to continue to examine those people that are close to us. Those people are in key management positions. And make sure they have the same hunger and the same vision that we have. And if not, it's actually better for them, although it's temporarily rough, because they need to be in a place where they're not going to feel uncomfortable because of the pains of somebody trying to push them to grow when they don't want to grow. It's a win-win sometimes, separation. But it's like a rocket booster. You know, they have a rocket, they want to launch it, and the one booster goes up, and they have 2 more to go. The second one can never fire until the first one is released. And so if you want to go to a higher orbit, sometimes you have to let go of the rocket that got you to that first orbit. And you have to make a change. And so we changed the people that were there and got people that were hungry, people that wanted to succeed, people that believed in our dream, and people that believed in our vision. Now, the enemy of that is a thing called commonality. Commonality is a tremendous bond. But commonality is the very thing that can keep us from growing. Let's switch for a minute from people working for us to friends, but it works the same way. If all your friends in your inner circle are people of the basic spiritual, economic level that you're at, there is no force that's going to cause you to go to a higher level. There was a survey done of the public housing projects in New York City. And one of the questions on the survey was they asked the people to name their best friend. Once they named the best friend, the follow-up question was, where does your best friend live? 85% of the respondents said their best friend lived in the same building. 50% said their best friend lived on the same floor. If your best friend lives on the same floor, how are you getting in an elevator to go higher? So we can't just have friends. We have to choose friends. I've raised 5 kids, and all of them serving God and tremendous Christians, but part of it was, as a parent, I carefully looked at their friends and taught them the importance of choosing, not just having, and choosing friends that would have the characteristics that they wanted to have in their life to be replicated. And so I challenge you, go through a season of temporary discomfort, but choose to surround yourself with leaders and achievers. The third thing that I did that first week, I called my pastor. I said, Pastor, and he knew about the opportunity I had. I said, hey, how would you like to drive a new Chrysler? I would like to give you a free car to drive. Every 6 months, I'll give you a new car. Now, that might not sound like a big deal, but let me put it in perspective. I'm in a dealership that's out of money. I'm in a dealership that the owners were going to quit on, and I'm phoning and giving a car away. If you haven't figured out, that's an expense. Why would I do that? Because I believe God's word. And God's word says, what you sow is what you reap. What did I need to reap? Car sales. If I didn't get car sales, I'm hopeless. So what do I need to reap? Car sales. So what do I need to sow? A car. See, don't get this perspective of only sowing money. Sow the thing that causes the increase. If you're an accountant, sow some free accounting to some widows, some poor people, to some ministries. If you're a mechanic, fix the car free. Look for opportunities when God would speak to you to fix the car free. Whatever it is, sow the thing that is going to cause your increase. He blesses what you set your hands to. Now, it turned out to be a great investment, because that pastor drove that car around, and I got more car sales off of him bragging about those cars that I gave him. But I didn't do it for that reason. I did it because I believed that what I sowed would multiply and come back. See, this is one reason I'm so proud of you in this room. Because you've caught this perspective of what I'm talking about. Sometimes people get all this, should I tithe off the growth? Should I tithe off of this? Should I tithe off of that? And I said, you got the whole wrong perspective. You have the power not just to obey God, you have the power to change your economic circumstances. See, tithing, and I believe in tithing, but tithing is a look back. Tithing says, this is what I did, so I'm going to give to God based upon what I did. But see, I operate in a more powerful law. And that law says, if I plant more seeds, I'm going to have a greater harvest. So I'm not looking back saying I got to give out of the past. I'm looking ahead to say I'm going to plant more seeds because I want a greater harvest. We have somebody that came to the event this year that said, I just have it in my heart. He said, I hear you're going to be doing a remodel project on your home in Palm Springs area. He said, I don't do home remodels. I do commercial. He's a big commercial deal. He said, I just want our company, we're going to come down and we're going to do that for you. So what is he sowing? He's sowing time, he's sowing labor. And we're buying the materials, but he's sowing time, he's sowing labor into our house. And what he's doing is he gets a phone call on a bid that he had in Bakersfield. And he bid this job at, I think it was $870,000. And they called him and they said, listen, we need you to do $30,000 more work included in the bid. And then we need you to raise the bid by $140,000 because you're too low and the bid needs to be over $1 million. So they just gave him $140,000 just in one day. Why? What he sows is what he reaps. Start sowing the thing that causes the increase and see God unexpectedly bring blessings into your life. You're going to get bids that you weren't maybe the lowest bidder. You're going to find deals or money to save because he's going to supernaturally bless you. Perspective, people, and planting. And if you do those three things, there's more, but those three things, work on those three things for now, I believe that this can be a year of supernatural increase for you. How many willing to take at least one of these and work on them the next 2 weeks? Are you? Let's say this together. Father, I come to you today, and I thank you for your word. And your word clearly shows you want me to increase. But many times, Lord, my increase is dependent upon what I do. Like the fishermen that had to go out again. So, Father, show me the changes I need to make to get the increase you want me to have. And I thank you now, and I praise you for the increase that is coming my way. Now, thank you for that increase. Lord, we thank you. We praise you for it, Lord. Thank you. Turn to three people around you and say, I believe it's going to happen.